All right, I'm going to go ahead and get us started then. This is Nikki, and I am here today with Charna and with Sherry. Cindy's not going to be able to be with us today, but we're going to record our discussion so that she can catch up with what we talked about later. So, first of all, I just want to say thanks to all of you for joining us. We want to spend some time today just talking about implementation data and creating building implementation teams, and really start this endeavor of building a community where we can work together, talk together. Sorry, let me see if I can fix that audio for us. All right. So our goals for today's session, as I mentioned before, are really to talk about the feedback loop goal. So those of you who participated in the regional meetings back in March, remember that the feedback loop was one of those goals that we talked about during the meeting. And this feedback loop really focuses on how we are collecting information from implementers and how we're using that information for problem solving in our districts. And so I did want to mention right off the bat, we talk about data a lot, and we're talking about a couple of different kinds of data, right? We've got all this data that teachers are collecting about their students, and those are important pieces of data for us to look at. But when we're thinking about this feedback loop goal, we're really thinking about implementation data. And that's the data that we are gathering from teachers and from others at the building level about how the implementation of the formative assessment process is going. So what the successes are and what the barriers are to the work. So whenever I talk about data today, what I'm talking about is that implementation data that informs our feedback loops. So I mentioned the community of practice, and where we're going with our community practice again is Cindy and I really want to provide all of you with more opportunities to share with one another and talk with one another about how you're doing things in your district. We have found that when we have these opportunities to share, and especially in this sort of small group setting where you can really ask questions of one another, we're really building these opportunities for us to get better at the practice of implementing the formative assessment process. So we're going to talk again about the collecting of the implementation data. A lot of districts are using that GLOws and GROws form that our regional team has provided, but some districts are collecting that data differently, and I think we'll hear a little more about that later on. We do have a couple of district leaders who are going to share with us later on in the go-to today. So we're looking forward to hearing from the Rockingham team and also from Winston-Salem. Just wanted to remind you about that district team planning template that you saw back in March. Charna's going to put the links to both the sample template and to the blank planning template. I know many of you have already been working with this template, but we just wanted to bring it to your attention again so that you could maybe have a refresher about what your team talked about in relation to the feedback loop goal, maybe make revisions, that sort of thing. So the first question that we would like to address today, how is implementation data collected? We really would like you to think about using a tool to connect your teams and to share data. the tool that we find many people are using is the glows and grows, but really any sort of formalized way that people on your building teams and teachers in your classrooms are able to share their successes and barriers with the district team is going to be really important in establishing these feedback loops. So making sure that there's a consistent collection of this data is going to be helpful to teachers. In other words, rather than saying, if you ever have a problem, you can come to this person on your building team. What you'd want is maybe every time we hold a PLC meeting, we're going to collect some of this implementation data about how things are going. Or once a month, we're going to ask you to share how things are going. So just something a little more structured than teachers knowing that they have a place to go. Here's the sample of that glows and grows. I think in just a few minutes when we hear from the other district teams, you'll hear some other ways that district teams are collecting this data. But I think our guideline would be any sort of tool that provides an open-ended opportunity for teachers to share what's going well and what's not. In other words, sometimes people in developing these tools consider making them more like a survey or, a rating scale sort of opportunity and things like that. And the reason that we've encouraged this sort of open-ended type of tool is that we get a lot more information when we hear the specifics about what the barriers are and what the successes are than if we have sort of a numerical rating. If you're using your implementation data to problem solve and to improve implementation in your district, you're going to want those details so that you can have discussions around them and make decisions around them. So we really encourage you to think about whatever form you use or whatever format you decide on to collect this data, that you keep those as open-ended questions where you can get some real rich data from your teachers. Now, the next question that we wanted to address is how are building teams selected and created? And some of this is going to look familiar to you because these are selection criteria for building implementation teams, but they're very similar to the selection criteria that we've shared with you at regional meetings as suggested selection criteria for your district teams, right? So on your building teams, you're going to want to have a point person. That is a very important position to identify a point person because that's the person who is responsible for communicating the implementation data from the building team to the district team. So every building team should have someone identified, be it a lead kindergarten teacher, the person, really anyone on the team could be that point person, as long as they have a process in place for sharing that data. Another thing that we've found really important is to have someone with some decision-making authority on the team. So at the building level, this could end up being the administrator who's on the team, the principal or the assistant principal, but someone who can say, when teachers share sort of technical barriers that they're facing, things that can be problem solved at the building level, you want to have that decision maker on the team ready to just step in and make those decisions. So we suggest having an administrator and or someone who has that decision-making authority. And then, of course, you want other voices from the building at the table as well. You want to, I feel pretty sure that most of these building teams would have a kindergarten teacher. And then as other grade levels are included in implementation, you'd want to include other teachers at other grade levels as well. Those are the kinds of decisions that can be made as circumstances change. Then a lot of building teams have an instructional coach and or some support staff. Maybe if a school is focusing on the health and physical development domain, they might include their PE teacher as a part of this building implementation team. So those kinds of things. You do want to think about buy-in to the process when you're selecting people for your building teams. So to the extent possible, we would hope that people who are selected for building implementation teams are selected through a mutual selection process. So not just that they are invited or voluntold to be part of the team, but that they have an interest and a willingness and also knowledge of the innovation, that they really understand the formative assessment process itself. Those are the people who you'd want to have on that building team. And this graphic, you've seen this before as well, but just a reminder that within your district, your teams are going to be connected. Your building implementation team should have direct connection to your district team, but also you likely would have a professional development team that has membership shared between those district teams and the building level teams, a group that's just focused on planning and providing the PD to the teachers and administrators and others in your district who need it. So in just a minute, we're going to hear from some of your colleagues about what they're doing in their districts. But first, I wanted to just ask if anybody has a question about anything that I've shared so far. Okay, well, we'll have more time for question and answer at the end of our presentation, but I'm going to turn over to Charna now.
Hi, so we are so grateful today to welcome June Neely, Elementary Director and Director of Title I with Rockingham Schools, and Alyssa Slater, who's a K-5 lead teacher with Rockingham. And we've asked them to come speak today. You might remember some of their work from the spring regional meeting where they talked about the work they're doing beyond the 60th day and work they're doing with Connect teams. And so we asked them to come today to speak to these two questions that are the focus of our go-to today. So we're asking, ladies, if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about how you're collecting the implementation data and how you've gone about the work of selecting or creating your building level teams.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Hello, welcome.
Okay, great, thanks. Well, first of all, good afternoon, and thank you guys for having us. And we're happy to talk about our KEA progression as it has moved over the years. And I think one of the best things, first of all, is that we have had time with the KEA. It has been something that has been rolled out, in a progressive manner, but not too quickly. And I think that has been critical to the acceptance and the feeling of competence that our teachers have been able to build, over time. So that has been really important, in our processes. Talking a little bit about the implementation of data collection, our instructional coaches, we depend on them a great deal because they are our sort of, I guess you would call them sort of like they go out and spread the word from their meetings. And so we make sure that they are absolutely in the know with what is going on with not only the KEA, but all initiatives that we have in our elementary schools. And they often provide us monthly feedback, not only on KEA, but many things. But we made a point in, I guess it was 15, 16, to have sort of a monthly implementation status update that our instructional coaches would document what the issues were. Like if a person needed some support and we knew that another school was doing something well based on that same feedback that we were getting, we would kind of connect them to each other so that they could find out how it was happening in a real classroom and working well. So us sort of being the purveyors of the information and then sort of spreading it out as we needed to based on their needs. Our Kindergarten Connect teams, they meet quarterly. And one of the big topics of discussion, obviously, for the last few years has been the KEA implementation process. And those Kindergarten Connect teams have a representative from every elementary school that's representing their kindergarten grade level. And so that has been a huge conduit for us in making sure that people are feeling supported and successful from not only us, but from their peers who are right there next door to them in that, school building to help them and to have the information that they need. Glows and Grows, we have definitely used that. You mentioned that. We used it in 15, 16, and in our very first 16, 17 Kindergarten Connects meeting, we reviewed and discussed purposeful data collection, and we addressed concerns, that they may have had. One of our biggest issues, and I'm sure this is true in other districts, is the turnover that we experience. It just makes it difficult for us to keep everybody on track and going the way they are. But the beautiful thing about the Connect team is that, hopefully, unless you've had such a mass exodus in your school, you're going to have people there who have experienced the information and have the information and can help those new folks to that grade level or to teaching in general. So that's been another benefit of our Connect teams, is having that continuity for the information. Alyssa does a fabulous job of keeping all of our resources in our curriculum website. We have one for every grade level, but our KEA information is included with our kindergarten curriculum information with their pacing guides and those types of things. So they always have that reference and that resource to either direct someone to or to go back to themselves if they need to have a refresher on what's going on with the KEA or to provide information. Do you have questions about how that Kindergarten Connect team works?
Hi, June. This is Eva from Winston-Salem. I would love to know a little bit more about how you structure that Kindergarten Connect team. Even maybe before you even had KEA to think about, did that exist and how do you use that?
Yes, it did. It actually existed many years ago, and then it kind of went away because it lost its purposefulness, I guess would be the word, and then we brought it back. The director prior to me, Dr. Tiffany Perkins, she brought it back the year before I came into this position because teachers wanted it. They wanted it back, and they wanted it to be meaningful and purposeful. So in answer to your question, yes, it did exist, and then it came back. And we were so happy when KEA came about that we had that sort of structure in place to provide support at the school level beyond just our instructional coaches. We actually had those kindergarten teachers who were able to get the information, talk to each other, communicate with people who were in the same boat that they were, so to speak, with the implementation and that was the biggest benefit. That's what we hear over and over again. They love getting together and being able to talk to each other. And I will tell you that Alyssa and I try to be very cognizant of time, and we start meetings at 3, and we say 3 to 4:15, for connect teams. And we have never had one end when it's supposed to. They always keep us there. They want to stay. We're there. The custodian is like wanting to run us out the door because we do it at different schools that sign up to host, and they literally don't want to leave. They want to stay and talk more about the things that they're doing and how this is impacting their instruction. And the picture that you see on the slide that's up is actually one of our kindergarten teachers who has been just a front runner in these efforts. And she actually spoke at the spring meeting, Darlene Tannehill, and she is actually working with other kindergarten teachers in our district, and they were creating plans, they were creating ideas, they were talking about centers that they use that directly correlate to the constructs and the progressions, that they had. So those meetings have always been very productive, and the teachers just love them. Now, I know one of the other question is how do you choose these people? How do they become a connecting member? And we strongly discourage drafting people. We do not want that. We want people to be involved in this because they want to learn, and that they want to, move forward and build their own capacity with the KEA. So it's supposed to be, now I won't say in a perfect world, it's supposed to be, once we communicate the expectations, the meetings, the times, the dates, all of those things, and we also offer CEUs for our work in our Connect teams, then teachers decide to be the representative for their particular school. And we have, I would say, the majority, that really does happen. Yeah. It really does happen.
Tell them before school ends, like the next year's meetings, the date. They have those. They know, so they can plan ahead. And if they couldn't do it, they could say.
Yeah, we want to make sure that we're very transparent in what our expectations are for these Connect teams, and also provide the benefit of not only the learning, but also, the credit, the CEUs that we award based on the work that we do in those teams.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. I'm wondering if you'd be willing to share some of your information about the structure and how often you meet and topics and that sort of stuff with the rest of us.
Sure, I'll let Alyssa talk about that because she handles a lot of our agendas for those meetings.
And really,
and,
go ahead.
Okay. I mean, I was just going to say that maybe, I don't know if it's something we want to do now. I don't want to kind of get us off task, Nikki, but, is there something that can be shared, a document that you have or something like that you could share?
We certainly have time. We'll just take some of your time, Eva.
That's fine, because that's fine.
Just kidding. We've got plenty of time.
Okay.
How to discover what our needs are a variety of ways. We use the glows and grows. We've used Google surveys that have been open-ended. They have open-ended questions. For example, how have you incorporated KEA into daily routines? What works? What improvements do you see? And that was in February of 2017. And what we had found out in 2016 or 2015-16, that previous year, in the glows and grows, the teachers said they wanted to know how to collect this data purposely in their daily routines. They were trying to get it a more natural flow. And so that year we knew we needed to address that. And so we had our first Connect team meeting where we discussed that, and we addressed some ways that we could have some purposeful data collection, and discussed, teachers were able to share with one another what they did. So then we decided to get more feedback, and we continually get feedback naturally anyway. And so Mrs. Neely and I have a running Google Doc, and so we will write different topics on there that we will know we need to address it, or we need to have that as a topic for the next meeting. So it could be something addressed immediately or for a topic for the next meeting. So we took that survey, to see how it'd been going. So we had given them some strategies. They were to share those strategies with their teachers at their school, and then we just had a survey of how's it going. And as I said, we had that continuous feedback. We also talked about beyond the first 60 days. One of the teachers I know had said to me, well, this is really good data, but what are we doing this further beyond the first 60 days? And actually, she had been a preschool teacher, so she had been, well versed with the process. And so we had talked about that. That was our final meeting where we talked about beyond the first 60 days. And that's where the Connect team talked about how to move those students along those progressions. And they created instructional lesson suggestions, center ideas, and a variety of things how to address those progression or constructs. And one of the things that we noted was, oh goodness, I lost my thought. Let's see. Well, it also goes back to the MTSS process. We have some schools that are transitioning to that. And so that is another way to have that partnered in with that. And well, I guess it's just not meant to be said. Then we had we continue glows and grows. And when our team met at DPI, or when we met with you guys, we had a discussion with our teachers, and they think for next year we're having plans. We see the need for a experienced K teacher to have an opt-in kind of extended access, kind of like what we're doing, a go-to meeting, that type thing. So they can have that and then just talk across the district, and you don't have to have a meeting per se. It's a face-to-face meeting. Survey the kindergarten teachers to determine the needs and level of capacity. Again, that's another thing. We always want to survey that, and I think that it's because our turnover can be, you get a lot of turnover sometimes. People are retiring, people move, that sort of things, or they change grade levels. So we always want to make sure we know where everyone is and provide the Connect team kindergarten lead teacher with the instructional materials so that she can teach the new teacher to her grade level what to do. We also thought of a listserv for Connect team members next year and instructional coaches. We have the KEA linked to all the relevant resources and sites. And one of the things we found, though, is we're still building this, and we're still growing, and we'll always be growing. But as June and I looked at the data through the platform, we noted that lots of teachers were waiting till the end to input their data, or else they were waiting to the end to do it in some sense. So what we feel like is we need to have our instructional coaches just kind of keep a tab on that and encourage the coaches to encourage the teachers, and thinking about how we can put this in place so it is a natural flow with the classroom and not something that you have to do. And so we're still working on that.
Definitely. That's always the challenge. And, the other part of that is we already have a PLC system, which has been in our system for, Lord, probably 8 to 10 years now, and it's called CASA, Collaboration Around Student Achievement. And that is a mandate that has to be done every week. And so at the beginning of the year, when we first meet with our ICs, we strongly suggest that they immediately in those CASA meetings start talking about KEA, because that's like the jumping off point. And a lot of times people want to get bogged down in BOY with them class, and we have to remind them that that can be a part of the KEA documentation, evidence, those kinds of things that all go in at the beginning of the year. So that CASA platform is where we expect KEA to be a critical part of the conversation with our kindergartens throughout the district, and our ICs are charged with leading that.
And one thing we'd like to say is we appreciate the collaboration with you guys across the state or in the surrounding districts here, and we use many of your ideas and share those with our teachers, and those have been great too as well. Any other questions?
Well, I will say, this is Nikki again. I thank you so much to both of you for sharing. Charna and I have been sitting here taking notes, and there are a lot of notes about the things that you guys are doing with the Connect teams and across the district. I was excited to hear about the connection to PLCs because, in fact, that was one of the questions that I had earlier is about how the Connect team connects back with the PLCs, because that seems across a lot of districts to be an important place where the KEA process is being discussed among kindergarten teachers. And then I was also really interested to hear how you're using this structure to support new teachers and teachers who are new to kindergarten, because that's another thing that Cindy and I hear about a lot is the challenges around providing adequate PD for people new to kindergarten. And so I think that's something that a lot of people are thinking about, and it's really interesting to hear how you all are using your Connect teams to address that.
Well, and I've also already told my principals, because it's the season in the spring for them to move people around or to hire people into kindergarten positions. And so immediately, if I hear them talking in our conversations about movement in their school, I say, well, here is the site that you need to put any new kindergarten teacher on so that they will have time prior to coming into kindergarten to review all of the resources, because there are so many resources. Mm-hmm. You think about, you can go back to the very beginning of the webinars about, KEA, and it gives, I actually shared personally with a teacher I know who is moving from first to kindergarten for next year. I personally shared those resources with her because she was feeling a little nervous, in our conversation that we had at her school about going to kindergarten. And she was just so thankful and so grateful by just the vast amount of information that she's going to be able to look at and become more familiar with, over the summer before she actually has to start in. So I think using those people who are making the decisions about who's going to be in kindergarten to give those resources and support, because that's how teachers will view that. That is a very supportive effort on the part of any administrator who is moving someone to a KEA grade level, to give them that support and all those resources.
Mm-hmm. And I just, this seems like a good opportunity for me to make a quick plug for the new module in NISAs that the state team, the state K-3 formative assessment process team created. And teachers any teacher could enroll in that module, but particularly those who are new to the process, it gives a really good, good foundational information about what the formative assessment process is, what the critical components are, and really how to use this in their classrooms. And they get a continuing education unit for taking that course, 1.0 literacy CEUs. So that might be some, and those of you who are point people, Cindy and I sent out an email about that a few weeks ago, but if you've lost track of that information, we're happy to provide it again. I think that's a great resource for teachers new to the process, and as a refresher for anyone who would be interested.
I can link the SMORE in our chat box that has all the information that you need about that.
Okay, great, thank you.
And I did have that. I do have that, and I will also throw out a suggestion that I have taken advantage of those courses because they are very good. In addition to the resources, I have, again, for the second year, I have 3 new principals in elementary who are coming from secondary and trying to build their capacity as well as instructional leaders in their school, because between M-Class and KEA, when you're coming from secondary world, it is like a foreign language. So I highly recommend, if you have principals coming into elementary in that situation, that you give them access to this as well.
And there's an administrator module that we'll be sending out information about in the next couple of weeks. It's point 0.3 CEUs, so it's abbreviated from that full sort of teacher-focused module, but it'll be the same kind of thing, targeting administrators, if that's helpful.
That's great.
Any other questions for our Rockingham team? If not, I'm going to turn it over to Sherry.
Great, thanks, Nikki. We're really happy to have Dr. Eva Phillips from Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools joining us also this afternoon. You've already heard a bit from Eva. She is the Ready Schools coordinator for her district and is also her district's leader in the successful involvement in the usability process for implementing the NC K-3 formative assessment process. So thank you, Eva, for joining us this afternoon and sharing your district's experience around these topics of building, creating building teams and collecting implementation data. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Can everybody hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay. So I just appreciate the opportunity to share and then to hear from others about what they're doing. As we all know, this is a learning curve and a learning process that our team, as well as yours, have been working on for the last couple of years. And you know, first of all, I can echo all the things that June said about the importance of the time that we've been given to implement this, taking the time to understand it, starting with a few schools, starting with just a few constructs, and growing it as we go. I think that's been a really valuable way to get buy-in and to help teachers understand it. Although, you know, everybody still has the same questions, and you feel like you say the same thing 400 times to folks to help them understand. But we are making progress, and I'm really blessed to have a very dedicated and fun team of folks around the table to really think about how we make this happen here in Winston-Salem Forsyth, and how we you know, provide the support that we need to for our teachers. We also have relied very heavily on our instructional facilitators, who already have extremely full plates at the schools, but they have been the ones that we have tried really hard to share some of the basic information with, and they are the folks that are really taking the information back to their schools and helping their teachers. And you know, we have a fairly large district. We have 43 schools. Some of those schools are have embraced this process a whole lot more enthusiastically than others. So we still have some growing to do, but I think the instructional facilitators have been a real key component to making this work. Although we are at a point now where we're ready to kind of share that love with some other folks and with our building implementation teams, which I'll talk about in a second. We also have used the Glows and Grows document the last couple of years. We did that with the folks that were participating in the usability study. We had just a handful of schools who were implementing KEA and then working on first through third, and so we used that Glows and Grows document with those folks and collected lots of great information about what was working and what wasn't. Used that information to plan our next steps and what sort of support folks needed. We have moved to something a little bit different because of our new focus on our building implementation teams, but it's still the same, I guess, vision of the kind of information we want. Nikki was talking about how important it is for open-ended questions and being able to get some rich data on how implementation is going. So what we've created to start using for this coming school year is a Google survey. that we hope that our building implementation teams will use after they meet. And it's basically what's going well, what isn't going well, and then how can we support your team. And those answers to those questions will be automatically sent back to me as the point person for our district team, and then we have a small subgroup of our team who is responsible for looking at the data and thinking about what they tell us and bringing it back to our team to think about what sort of problem solving or what sort of resources we need to put together for folks. So this new Google survey will time will tell how well it works with our team, and it'll be kind of fun to see what part of that works and what doesn't, and then what we need to do to make sure that each school is really taking the time to provide feedback and ask for things that they need to ask for. So for the feedback loop, I think that's pretty much what our plans are at this point. I guess the second big piece of this is that we have really started, well, over the spring of this past year, our team really talked about the importance of taking this to the next level. And the best way to do that would be to really strengthen and create a consistent building implementation team structure so that our feedback loops will get into our schools and get into all schools. So we talked a lot about what kinds of folks we would want on a building implementation team, and all the things that Nikki shared in the beginning of this webinar are the things that we talked about. We knew how important it was to have some selection criteria, and really thought deeply about who are the folks at the schools that really can help us move this forward. I think our newest purpose for this is to continue to help folks understand the constructs and learn about ways to look for data throughout the school day in our kindergarten classrooms. But most of us are still on the mindset of at the end of 60 days, we're done. And so we knew that our job for this coming year and our goal was to help folks move past those first 60 days and understand how the process can help them understand children's growth and development and help them, plan what they do with children throughout the entire year. So we are going to start relying really heavily on those building implementation teams to help us do that, so that we can continue to encourage our kindergarten programs to be places where developmentally appropriate practices are reflected, where teachers are using this implementation tool for formative assessment from the minute children walk in the door until they go home, and that it really does influence all sorts of instruction that happens in those classrooms. So to be able to do this in such a large district, we really do need these school level teams to serve as the kind of foot soldiers, if you may, in the buildings, who are helping teachers keep this at the forefront of their thinking. And this school level team will be that connection to our district implementation team as we move forward. I think the other piece that we all agreed about was that if this was going to be something that would be used consistently across the district, then it really had to be seen
Eva, we've lost you. Eva, you might need to check your audio. It looks on the dashboard like your microphone is still unmuted, but We're not able to hear you. Eva, are you able to check your audio settings? Wondering if Eva's not able to hear us. Will you type her a message? I'm hoping that we'll be able to get our audio back for Eva because what they're doing, developing these building level implementation teams in such a large district has been really quite an accomplishment. And it's exciting to see they're just a couple of weeks ago, we joined them for a kickoff meeting for these building implementation teams. It was at 8:30 in the morning, right at the beginning of summer, and we were pleased at how excited everyone was to be there and really enthusiastic about the process. So they're off to really a great start with using these teams to support the work. It looks like Eva might not have been aware that we lost her, so she might have still been talking. Let's see if we can get her back on. And if not, maybe we'll just move on and take some other questions while we're waiting to hear more from her. Are there any questions that anyone has about what Eva has shared so far that I might be able to address? Okay, good. Thank you, Alyssa. Let's go ahead. We'll come back to Eva. I want to bring this particular slide to your attention. This is sort of Glows and Grows data for Cindy and Sherry and Charna and I to think about. We always like to ask, what KEA topic do you want to know more about? As you can imagine, we'll be planning for another regional meeting sometime in the fall, probably sometime in the midst of the 60-day window, but also talking about extending the use of the formative assessment process all year and beyond just that kindergarten entry portion of the formative assessment process. And we're just starting the planning for that meeting. So whatever thoughts you have about what would be helpful and what sorts of resources might be helpful to you, we've got some time now that we can plan for creating new resources and developing an agenda for the fall meeting that'll be as helpful to you as possible. So let us know in the chat box what other KEA topics you'd like to hear more about. Eva, are you back with us?
Yes.
Well, that's wonderful. So
oh my God, I was just talking and talking and talking.
I thought you might have been. Sorry.
I'm so sorry. I have no idea what happened.
I'm not sure either.
Sometimes.
Yeah, we just kind of lost you. I just moved on to this question
Yes.
about KEA topic, but I'm gonna, while people are thinking about that, and everyone, you feel free to add things into the chat box as we're talking. But in the meantime, I'm gonna scoot back to our Winston-Salem Forsyth slide and let Eva recap what she was saying while we couldn't hear her.
Oh my gosh, how much did you not hear? What was the last thing you heard me say?
We didn't hear anything at all about your KEA Spirit Day. Even I don't know if you were going to talk about that, but
Yep, I was.
okay.
So did you hear me talk about the instructional superintendents and getting our senior leadership on board?
No, ma'am.
No, that's
Okay, so basically our committee decided that in order for us to really move forward and to get a consistent focus on the KEA across kindergarten, and to be able to create building implementation teams that would be successful and have that happen in all 43 of our schools. We knew that we had to get our senior leadership on board in a stronger way than they had been. And so I presented this information about where we wanted to go, that this was, we had figured out how to get to the 60th day and status summaries, but after that, folks pretty much dropped off in the implementation. And so it was important for us to take it to the next level and move forward with helping teachers see how this could be used all year long. So what we asked of the superintendents was, after we explained what we wanted to do, is that we wanted them to, I guess, I don't want to say the word mandate, but it was sort of an expectation that each school in our district would develop a building implementation team, and that those folks would be connected to the district implementation team. So we got support from those folks. We have 6 instructional superintendents. It's a newer organizational structure for us, where instructional superintendents are connected to a group of schools. So those instructional superintendents, when I didn't hear back from a school with their list of who they wanted to be on their building implementation team, then I could reach out to that instructional superintendent and say, hey, can you check in with so-and-so and see if you can get that information? And that worked. Kind of killed 2 birds with 1 stone. Not only did we get our schools at a higher participation rate, but we also have our instructional superintendents who have a little bit more understanding of what we're trying to do and why. So what we did, what Sherry was talking about, was what my team decided they wanted to call KEA Spirit Day. And it was a day when we brought together all of the school building implementation teams. And it happened this month on July 15th. Each building implementation team, using the criteria for selection and our recommendations of teams of 4 at this point. The teams could be brought bigger than that back at the school, but the 4 main members of the team that we wanted to come to this event were the principal or the assistant principal, or both, the instructional facilitator, the lead kindergarten teacher, and we included a specialist. And most folks brought their physical education specialist to the table, because we knew that there were several of our schools who had started to build some partnerships with those PE folks to really help them think about health and physical development with young children. And so we wanted to bring them to the table to help us think about how we can strengthen some connections between kindergarten and the specialists in the building, so that there's some collaboration on providing opportunities for children to grow and develop, but also in collecting the data on children as well. So we brought those teams together. We did kind of a purpose of the day, which was to basically understand the structure of a building implementation team, understand the roles and responsibilities of each one of those members of the team, discussing the process for communication and this feedback loop we've already talked about today. And then think about helping them know what kindergarten entry assessment can look like in classrooms. So we shared lots of photographs and talked about what types of things they see children developing and see what kinds of things either in the standard course of study or in the domains of learning and the constructs that teachers could learn about just by observing children or playing with children or working with children in those different activities. The, I guess, product for the end of the day was that each team would create their building implementation planning or plan. And Cindy and Nikki and Sherry worked on a building implementation team template for us, and we shared that through Google Docs. And so each one of our schools now has a building implementation team planning document where they can go in and update things as they accomplish goals or add new action steps. And it's available for everyone to see in a shared Google Doc folder. And so as of today, we only have 2 schools that haven't gotten theirs uploaded into the Google folder. One of them was the only person that was available to come to the meeting that day was the brand spanking new kindergarten teacher from a different county. So bless her heart, she sat and listened and learned, and so they'll get some additional support from us to get their plan in place. So during that day, we pretty much had a principal talk about the importance of the principal's role in this team, and was very honest and clear about if the principal's not on board, then your teachers aren't going to be on board. And so the principal representative that talked for us was really quite energizing and really urged his colleagues to be an active participant in the work. The lead kindergarten teacher is the one who will serve as the main point person to our district implementation team. That kindergarten teacher and the instructional facilitator will work closely together with facilitating conversations either in our PLT times or in additional meetings or other times when they might be meeting together as a kindergarten team. They'll offer peer support and also continue to be an active member of the feedback loop. The instructional facilitator will be there to support that lead teacher, to be the professional development liaison, to help the kindergarten team think about the data that they're collecting in their classrooms and how they use that as part of their PLT conversations, and also being an active participant in the feedback loop as well. And then the last role for the specialist was, really to help make connections between the KEA constructs and the standards, and to be a liaison between that team and the other specialists in the building, and also helping their colleagues and themselves figure out ways to provide opportunities for students to work on the skills within the progressions and to help teachers collect data. It was a really fun day. We got really good feedback. It was a very basic beginning to here's where we are, here's what we're trying to do, here's what we need to do to be able to strengthen and the implementation of this and to take it up to the next level. So our goal is to have these building implementation teams meet monthly and provide us with information back through that Glows and Grows Google survey. We'll also bring those kindergarten lead teachers together probably a couple of times a year. We're still trying to figure out what's the best way to bring folks together and how often. to provide them PD, to provide them support as they go back to their buildings to keep moving forward. So we'll see how it all goes. I think we got a really positive start, and I think folks are ready to maybe take it to the next level. So Sherry or Nikki, is there anything else you wanted me to share about that, or does anybody have any questions?
Well, I just want to make a comment before we open to questions is, Eva, when we lost you on audio for a minute, I was saying how exciting it was to be at that KEA Spirit Day, and how the positive attitude of the group. It was really exciting to see that, people were coming in at 8:30 in the morning, happy to be there and ready to get engaged in the work, which, I mean, I think that says a lot for the planning of the day. But the other thing that I really want to say, and I had not heard this until you just said it, that you've got 42 building implementation plans completed. To me,
yeah, they're not totally completed, but they are uploaded and they have stuff in them.
So completed, well, maybe started is the word, but started is, that's the goal, right? And so what that says to me is that your team facilitated the process of creating those building plans to the extent that it was doable for people. I think that to have that many schools able to engage in the process means that your team did a really great job of facilitating that for them. So that is really exciting to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'll stop talking and let others ask questions.
Hello.
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 Lisa from ABSS. How's everyone doing?
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
Thanks so much for sharing. I really appreciate this opportunity, and I've learned so much from the ladies that have shared. I have a couple of questions. I really like the idea of the KEA Spirit Day.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a great opportunity to bring people together and just celebrate and move forward. I was wondering if that session lasted a whole day or a portion of the day.
It was just 2 hours. It was from 8:30 to 10:30.
Okay. Awesome. And would that the principal that spoke, would he be willing to go on the road?
Yes, he probably would.
He would.
Yes, he's the kind of guy that would probably love to do that, or we could at least video him.
That's a great way to hear from someone within your own district that has seen success and can really be the cheerleader to motivate and inspire all the folks that were involved. That's a great idea.
We will talk to him about that and see if he'd be willing to let us do a video. We can do that, right, Nikki?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right.
We're all laughing because Mr. Wyatt is enthusiastic to the point of I don't know what, larger than life, right? He is a lot of fun to have on the team, but also at the same time very passionate about the work, and really did sort of charge his colleagues with being the same kind of leader that he is in this particular initiative. So he would be a great spokesperson to address other principals.
That's good. That's good. I think that just encourages me, and that's something I think I'm going to put on my to-do list, is to look for someone within our district that can serve in that role here for us, because I think when others hear from someone in their shoes and at the school level, I think that speaks volumes to just the potential and the power of this process. The other question I had was, Would you guys be willing to just share a sample of your build-in implementation plans?
Sure. Yeah, I don't see why not.
Eva, would you like me to share my screen with you, or I have some of those in my Google Drive as well, but I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't looked at them, so I don't know which one you'd be comfortable sharing.
Well, I don't know. I have not dug into them either. I've just kind of scrolled through, but I mean,
I'm sorry, Eva. I just completely cut you
no,
off.
it's okay.
The format for those building implementation templates is exactly the same as this one.
Yep.
So
Okay.
we just, as a regional team, we just used this planning template with the goals that we had for district teams and sort of modified that to address the needs of the same goals, but at the building level. Is that,
okay.
Eva, does that sound?
Yeah, it does. I mean, can you easily share your page with me?
Well,
I don't know. I don't know. I've got Sedge Gardens pulled up, which is where our principal friend is principal. They do have a lot of information in it.
It's going to take a minute to get to your screen. Yep. We'll see what happens.
All right, I'm having to download something.
Oh.
Some sort of extension, but hold on. Might work. Are you seeing anything from my?
I think we're seeing your screen.
You are? Okay. Wait a minute. That's Rockingham. Hold on. All right. So are you all seeing the building team planning template?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. So this is, you can see that we've just got the members of the team on at the very beginning, but then the second page, you know, like she said, is very similar across the top with the kinds of things that we hoped that they would include. And then the goals, we provided, I think, 3 for them. So, you know, one goal is to provide clear communication. And so 2 pieces of that were to develop a communication plan and also to develop the data feedback loop on implementation data. And then you'll see at the bottom, here's the Google form or Google survey that they use. So you'll see some of the ideas they had. Professional development, looks like they want to have some PD for their specialists because those are the folks who've typically not been engaged in a lot of the PD up to this point. PLTs for specialists would need to be a priority. Hopefully, and
we've got June put a question in the chat box about that as well. So it looks like that's something that our regional team needs to be thinking about in terms of supporting
specialists,
district teams to create that PD and deliver that PD for specialists. We are more than happy to start thinking about that.
Great. And we did have a new member of our district implementation team now. She's our health and physical education consultant here at the district level. And so she's very excited about the connection that we want to make and is probably, Nikki, very willing to help us think through what PD should look like. In fact, she's already thinking about offering some PD during those beginning school days that she does. So we should, you know, get her on board and have a conversation about that. That's great. And then, so anyway, so you'll see what kinds of things they've put here. The folks that are leading the work, Megan is their instructional facilitator, and I believe Mike is their PE specialist. Elizabeth Noel is the lead kindergarten teacher there. So those are the kind of folks they're, you know, putting as the responsible ones. I guess so there's 4 different goals that we provided for them. So the next one you'll see is build KEA capacity. One thing we really want to do this coming school year is identify some model classrooms. Elizabeth, the teacher I just mentioned, is somebody who has embraced this and is just amazing in what she does in her classroom, and she's coached her colleagues at her school. So their school is a place where we feel very confident that if people went to visit, they'd see KEA implementation really being embedded into what they do every day. We want to find some more of those classrooms, and so we're hoping through this BIT process that we'll find some of those other teachers, because we know they're there too.
And others might remember from the regional meeting that we had the lead teacher from Newton Conover City Schools sharing. It seems like that model has been really helpful because kindergarten teachers ask, how does this look in practice? So I'm hearing more and more of these places where a kindergarten lead teacher is identified, or a kindergarten, model teacher who can really demonstrate what this looks like for others has been helpful.
Yeah. So the other 2 are building the formative assessment process capacity, continuing to provide professional development. You'll see this school is, thinking about how can that be included in their PLT discussions every month. And building capacity with the online platform is another goal that we ask them to think about. So, once again, using the PLT as a place to have those conversations and have some structure around them and help teachers kind of build confidence with that. We'd left a space for additional goals for schools. So it'll be interesting to see if other goals surface over this next year. So that's an example of a pretty simple but straightforward plan that I think they can build on and pull some more details in as the school year gets started again. One other thing, Nikki, I haven't shared this with you yet, but we have PLT coaches here in our district,
right?
And they are, they have protocols and lots of support for schools in our district to use the PLT process in effective and productive ways. And we have had several conversations recently with the PLT coaches that are here at our district and myself and a couple of kindergarten teachers to talk about the data that's collected with KEA and how that can fit into their data analysis and their protocols. And so we are working together to be prepared by fall to really be able to have these PLT coaches provide some additional resources for teachers and their instructional facilitators to use during those monthly weekly meetings or PLTs, but also to validate that the PLT process here in Winston is the right place to have those discussions, and that thinking about the whole child and bringing in the KEA data to be a part of the discussions is really important. So I'm very excited that we've got that connection and that they are showing such interest in and, will really help us validate with even more folks that this is really important information and that we should have it as a priority in our conversations. So that's exciting too.
Thank you so much, Eva, for sharing that with us
Yep.
this afternoon.
Sure. All right, I'm going to stop sharing and see if you get back to where you're supposed to be.
Okay, let me
Are you back?
see if I can get back to me. I do want to say that anyone who is interested in having that sorry, I've started us from the beginning. That building team planning template, send an email to either me or Cindy. We're happy to share that template with anybody who feels like it would be helpful. Any other questions for Eva? All right, so our closing question, what new ideas have you gained today that you can use in your district? If you have something that you'd like to share, I see we do have a couple of questions from June, and I think that in terms of PD for the specialist, that is something that I'm going to put on our agenda so that we can begin to think about how that works. The question about the social emotional domain of learning and the constructs in that domain, that's a question, June, that comes up often for us. I'm sure others on the call have heard from teachers that particular domain is a little more challenging. We have our regional team has been creating these quick guides. I'm sure you all have heard us mentioning the quick guides that we've been creating. And one of the first ones that we created was around the emotional literacy construct progression. And what it does is provide some rationale for the progression itself, and then some suggested activities or ways that you might observe where children are in terms of their, emotional literacy and where they are on that progression. Now, the other thing I will say is that we've done with another one of our usability districts who used emotion regulation for their K-3 teachers in the usability study. We did some more extensive PD with them just around that social emotional domain. And I'm thinking we'll have, of course, I'll have to do some planning with Cindy, but maybe for our next go-to like this one, we could have someone from that team share sort of how they did a PD session just focused on the social emotional domain and those two construct progressions that are in that domain. And teachers really appreciated having the opportunity to think through those. And they had their some of their guidance counselors took part in that that PD as well. So I'll put that on our list also of things that we can think about in terms of future opportunities. And I see Lisa's comment, just thinking about continuing the process beyond the 60th day. I think that, that's something that we've, that our regional team has been thinking a lot about this past school year, is how to encourage people to continue thinking about the process. And maybe thinking about that 60-day window as just a small portion of this year-long process that we're all engaged in to really help our students progress in all of these different domains. And so we're constantly brainstorming ideas about ways that we can support districts in promoting that sort of beyond the 60th day idea. And we'll continue to brainstorm it, and we hope that you guys will share your great ideas about that as well. I think that a lot of teachers appreciate sort of having a lower pressure opportunity to continue with the process and use it in a way that really informs their instruction effectively. So we've gotten some good feedback in places where they're, focusing on individual progressions, for example, after the 60th day and things like that. We can definitely share more about that too. Eva, I see Alyssa's comment about having a video from Mr. Wyatt. I'm gonna leave that one to you if that's okay. We can talk about the way that we can. I'm sure that we have a resource where we could get a good video of him if you think he would be willing.
Oh, I would be shocked if he wasn't, but I will tell him about it. And I'll get back with you. I'll let you know.
Great.
I was going to say, this is Jean. I was going to say that anything that we can do with our initiatives with regards to tie-in to NC Star, I had put a comment in there about that. I'm always about if there are things that we are doing, big idea type things, that incorporating the initiatives and what we want people to do and what the expectations are into those things helps us be more accountable, helps them be more accountable, helps us monitor and gives us more tools to monitor and have conversations and discussions when we do tie it into something like the NC Star school improvement process, because our entire district is going to do that next year, and the indicators are very good. And anything that we can do to tie that in, since so many districts are going to that completely, I think would be great and would help support the implementation.
And June, I personally am going to have to do my homework a little bit about those indicators to address your question. Honestly, because I know that this is where we're going. I know that we talk a lot about KEA as core instruction, as tier 1 support kind of. And
yes.
So thinking about those indicators is probably a good next step for us in terms of helping all of you at your district level make some connections there. So to be totally honest with you, I can't address them right now, but I'm excited that you brought that to my attention, because I see that that's something that I need to become more familiar with. And so we'll be thinking about ways to make those connections.
Well, the fact that they've incorporated the comprehensive needs assessment this year into the NC Star, as well as given an MTSS crosswalk between the indicators, has just helped tie everything together. And I think it's critical that we do that as much as possible, so that everything is sort of coming back to that total school improvement process.
Right. Well, thanks for putting that on my radar, because I will certainly do my homework on that. Any other questions for us today? Well, I would just like to say thank you again to June and Alyssa and to Eva for sharing this great information, and just to the rest of you for logging on and for your participation today. We really are hoping to establish these community of practice go-to meetings as a way that we can facilitate some sharing across districts, and you guys can hear about the powerful things that are going on in our regions. So thank you again for participating, and please make sure to follow up with us if you have further questions or would like any of the resources that were shared today. And with that, we will conclude, and hopefully we'll be talking to all of you very soon. Thanks so much.